Today we'll be talking about the beautiful serendipity of Dragon Ball FighterZ. There are two sides to this coin I must address. First, one side is the fighting game fans, and the other side is Dragon Ball fans. So first, I'll be talking about fighting game fans. To put it very bluntly, it's been a rough past 5 years for fighting games. And I think when I mention this, the first thing fighting game fans will probably be thinking about would be Street Fighter V. Street Fighter V is presented as having an entirely new engine and combo system for a Street Fighter game, and that was hardly the case. It also had a tiny roster and not even an arcade mode, which is essential for Street Fighter. It's any fighting game, really. Another game a lot of fighting game fans, especially competitive players, might be thinking about is Mortal Kombat X. Although Mortal Kombat X had a great roster, great graphics, and a great story, the online gameplay was terrible. It was very buggy and had a lot frame delay quite often. For competitive fighters, this turned out to be more frustrating than fun. Another game people might be thinking about is Tekken 7. Tekken 7 was presented as what could be the greatest 3D fighter that has been created to this day. However, it was stuck in Japan for 2 years. You couldn't even get it in the United States. So a lot of the excitement for this game diminished over time, and the game did not sell well upon release in the United States. But I think most relevant to Dragon Ball FighterZ is Capcom, what is possibly one of Capcom's biggest follies, with Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Fans of the series were very excited when they heard that Marvel vs. Capcom is coming back. It had been a long time since Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. But upon the release of Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, fans were just totally disappointed to see just a stupid looking skin on the characters and a small roster, and I guess most importantly, the lack of all X-Men characters. That game was created by X-Men. The first fighter devised using Marvel characters by Capcom was X-Men Children of the Atom, and it was soon followed by X-Men vs. Street Fighter. The tone deafness of Capcom's executives by just saying like, well, it's a function. You're gonna get your Wolverine with your Black Panther, of course, upset fans, and it absolutely led to a fan boycott. Deservedly so. I admittedly boycotted Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite because it is BS that the game was released with such a small roster and that you would make fans pay for just a decent amount of characters. It's a mistake Capcom consistently makes, and it's why I think there was such a breath of fresh air at E3 2017 when Dragon Ball FighterZ surprised everyone with their fantastic trailer, which showed amazing mechanics and great and well developed combo systems and great looking characters. And I think another thing that should be mentioned before I move on to Dragon Ball fans is that Arc System Works is doing this game. Arc System Works absolutely deserves this game. They have been creating amazing fighting games like BlazBlue and Guilty Gear for many years. that unfortunately just could not compete with the likes of Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat because of the lack of recognizability of characters. But it's not to be said that they aren't great games with great, unique characters and fighting and combo systems. Arc System Works also developed their own story mode which had different options you can do based off of what you do within the fight, and it takes you in different routes of the story. Arc System Works, based off of the amount of hard work they've put in over the past many years, absolutely deserves a juggernaut IP like Dragon Ball. Before I move on to Dragon Ball fans, I must also say that the marketing team with Bandai Namco has done an amazing job presenting Dragon Ball FighterZ. E3 2017 was just the beginning. Following that was EVO 2017, when you had an exhibition tournament which had play-by-play in part by the likes of Rhymestyle, who's a Dragon Ball super fan, and you brought on Maximilian, dude. He's a great fighting game player and a great ambassador for all of fighting games.
That's it! That's it! Bro! That was amazing!
And following that, in subsequent other gaming conventions, one of which even including fighting game champion Sonic Fox, who's consistently winning competitive fighters like Injustice 2 and Tekken 7. Dragon Ball FighterZ absolutely deserved the 40 awards they won in E3, including Best New Fighting Game. The amount of amazing marketing that Bandai Namco has done with this game has led people to include it in the conversation of Best Game of 2018. Which brings me to Dragon Ball fans. Dragon Ball fans. I know I said it 3 times, but I have to say it so many times because we, as Dragon Ball fans, have been waiting so long for a competitive Dragon Ball fighter. A little bit of history for you guys, and it goes without saying, Dragon Ball is a gigantic intellectual property, deservedly so. It, for many years in Japan, was the most sold manga of all time, and for many years straight, it was the most watched anime. In South America, it is to this day the most watched anime there, and in the United States, it was the most watched anime during its airing. When it was on Cartoon Network, it was the most watched cartoon. When it was on Nickelodeon, as Dragon Ball Z Kai, even with Blue Mr. Popo, it was the most watched show, even more so than SpongeBob. What a lot of people don't know is how many Dragon Ball games there have been for consoles alone. There have been over 60 Dragon Ball games for consoles. That doesn't include online flash games, mobile games, computer games, board games. Point being, there's a lot of games. In fact, Masuko Nozawa, the voice of Goku in Japan, actually holds the Guinness Book of World Records record for most times voicing an animated character in a video game. That includes the likes of Super Mario and Sonic the Hedgehog. Goku is voiced more times by one person than anyone else in all of video games. That's crazy. But it goes without saying, the fandom for a long time has wanted a competitive fighter. It's actually a common misunderstanding that most Dragon Ball games have been fighting games. That is absolutely not the case. Most Dragon Ball games are actually like Pokemon style RPG adventure games. It wasn't until 2002 when Dragon Ball Z Budokai came out that the trend of almost every single year comes out another Dragon Ball game. And when Budokai came out, it's obvious the target demographic was not young adults. the target demographic was the age group of people watching Dragon Ball at the time, which if you're airing the show on Cartoon Network, it's gonna be like middle school aged kids. And what we've seen since Budokai came out in the game's development, all of Dragon Ball games development, is instead of competitive features being introduced into the game, actually ways of making it more fun for their respective target demographic, which is still like middle schoolers. So what we've been introduced to over the years has been now 6 people can play on the screen at once if you're playing online. Or like with the Dragon Ball Xenoverse games, and character building elements with stat building if you continue to play with that character. So it goes without saying, the Dragon Ball fandom had a growing hunger for a competitive fighter. This hunger was not fed until 2014 when Hyper DBZ came out. Hyper DBZ was a Mugen created game where the creators of the game created custom sprites, custom movesets, custom fighting mechanics, custom cutscenes, and custom hyper attacks, supers, whatever you want to call them. And the roster was tiny, but it was a really enjoyable game.
Oh, sit on my hand! Oh! That's pretty awesome.
For fighting game fans, it was a good time and a well-made Mugen game. But for Dragon Ball fans, it was just a shining light through the clouds and a breath of fresh air. And from both sides of the coin, it was a resounding yes, we do need a competitive Dragon Ball fighter. Now, if Bandai Namco had their ears to the community and were paying any attention to what was going on in the internet, they would have known that this was a growing hunger. That's when I think the seeds were planted for this game. And I think that Arc System Works and Bandai Namco came together to develop this amazing game and to keep it a secret from the fighting game community until E3 2017. I don't know if they're waiting for the perfect time to strike, but it is the perfect time to strike because of it being the perfect time in Super, when you have a great arc about to come out in the English dub, and an arc with a ton of characters going on in the Japanese dub. And it's a great time for fighting game fans because of the gigantic missteps by Capcom these past few years. And just the growing hunger the fighting game community has had for a new fighting game with new fight mechanics and just a fulfilling fighting game with just good characters in general. Now, is that serendipity or is that planning? I personally do not know, but I do know the buzz from both respective sides of the coin, fighting game fans and Dragon Ball fans, is that this game looks amazing and we can't wait to play it. The line was out the door for the closed beta, and a lot of people, fighting game fans and Dragon Ball fans, were not even able to play it. And really big fighting game names like Maximilian Dude played like 3 hours of it and recorded like 3 hours of him destroying people. And Team 4-Star even did an hour-long stream of them playing the game and them dubbing the characters while they were playing. It was fantastic. One thing is absolutely clear is that these two fandoms are uniting behind this game. Is it going to be the game of the year? Probably not, because we have the likes of The Last of Us 2 and Red Dead Redemption 2 that Dragon Ball FighterZ is probably not going to beat out, but it is in the conversation for that. This is when is a fighting game, let alone a Dragon Ball game, just ever been in the conversation for Game of the Year? The answer is never. But what is absolutely evident from all of just this excitement behind this game is it is beautiful serendipity, and whether it's an accident or planned, I don't care. Either way, I'm really excited, and I am looking forward to playing the heck out of this game. That's it for me, guys. Catch you all in the next one.
These are elementary mix-up, but he's in the corner from himself. Ridiculous.
Another mix-up. You can definitely call out Android 17 for the backup and the hard switch.
Wrong tag from Piccolo. That's gutsy move, but it pays off.
Nice. Destructo disc.
All right, that's what he's been. Oh, dodges the chop from the sky.
And still gets opened up, man. That Android 17.
Hey, the couples. Yo,
The brother and sister upside down.
that's squad goals.